Well, because I know we've got people logging in from all over the world. Good morning, or good afternoon, or good evening. I'm never sure what to say right at noontime if you're in the US Eastern Time Zone. And welcome to this special post-Thanksgiving edition of the UB Center for Leadership and Organizational Effectiveness 52 Weeks of Leadership program. Would you believe me if I told you that we're at week 48 already? It seems like just yesterday we were starting out. The year's gone by fast. I wish 2020 would have gone by this fast. I hope everybody had a great Thanksgiving holiday and is full and stuffed and looking forward to exercising to get that weight off. I know that's something I need to work on, and like to, as always, throw out a special recognition to our sponsor, the folks who made this whole webinar series possible. Thanks to Geico Careers for making this possible. Without this, we wouldn't be able to offer this to everyone for free all year long and on 48 installments. Moving forward, there's lots going on here at the University of Buffalo School of Management and in the Center for Leadership and Organizational Effectiveness. Some exciting announcements right around the corner about some big things we're planning on launching in 2022. So be watching your email for that coming up. I'd also like to let you know that we've got a special bonus episode. We've done a couple of those. We're going to do another one this week. You'll get an email about it. It'll be uploaded so everybody will have access to the video. I'm going to be doing it on the Great Resignation. And what you can do about it, how to challenge the Great Resignation. I've spent some time digging into the research around this, and well, what does the research say we can do to really hold on to these great people? So we'll be posting that to our website. Just Google 52 Weeks of Leadership later this week. And if you're on our mailing list, which I'm sure you are, you'll probably get an email about that as well. And again, thanks to Geico for making all of that possible. Let me stop my screen share real quick and introduce our speaker for today. He is one of my favorite people that I have gotten to meet over the course of my tenure as an associate professor here at the University of Buffalo. I've got his official bio here. Ian McFarland is the president, CEO, and chair of EA Engineering, Science, and Technology Incorporated, PVC. He'll talk a little bit about what that stands for. A U.S. environmental consulting services firm serving a wide range of clients in both the government and private sectors, 25 commercial offices nationwide, 600 employees, annual revenues of approximately 150 million. He's been with EA for over 35 years, working his way up the ranks to a CEO appointment in 2006, representing just the second generation of leadership since the firm's founding in 1973. He led EA, he's going to talk about this, don't want to steal too much of his thunder, but basically he led EA, which was once a public company, through an ownership transition in 2005 from its founder to employee ownership by an ESOP and management investors. In 2014, he led the EA's ownership conversion to 100% ESOP, that's employee stock ownership, and adoption as a public benefit corporation under Delaware corporate law. He's got a bachelor's degree in geology from Denison University and a master's degree in management of technology from the School of Wharton and the School of Engineering at the University of Pennsylvania. We've worked together for several years as trustees of the Greenleaf Center for Servant Leadership, where he serves as the current treasurer and chair of the Stewardship and Sustainability Committee. He also sits on the Department Advisory Board at Johns Hopkins University, Department of Environmental Health and Engineering, and the Leadership Council at Water for People, a pretty awesome charity, which I'm sure he's going to talk about. I actually met him at a conference for academics, for business professors, and he came up to me and said he was really interested in my work on servant leadership after one of my talks. And he said, well, I'm the CEO of this big engineering company, and I honestly thought he was a drunk graduate student. What in the world would a CEO of a successful engineering company be doing at this gathering of business professors? But what's fascinating about what's really different about him, here's a big, powerful CEO who is involved, engaged, enmeshed, enthusiastic about the research. So, usually at 52 weeks, we try to bring you different perspectives to put research and practice together. Ian is kind of unique in that he knows them both. And he's been very involved in UB as a research partner and in teaching in our MBA class. Enough for me. You're not here to speak here for me. Ian McFarland, ladies and gentlemen, and Ian, feel free to share your screen.
Okay, I'm getting to it here. Where did that button go? There it is. Well, welcome everyone. I'm glad you decided to join, and I always love to chat about kind of our path to where we are now. And please feel free to ask questions through the chat function. Is that right, Jam?
Yeah, sorry, I forgot to mention, if you've got questions for Ian as we go, feel free to type them in the chat. We'll have time at the end to let him answer.
Okay, so I'm going to wheel through some of this. My apologies for going quick over some of the slides. There's probably too many here, but I'll try to get through in a reasonable amount of time. So this is all about how servant leadership has helped my firm, which is a mission-led organization, become what it is today. And I think of it as becoming who we really want it to be. And servant leadership is pivotal in that regard. So I'm going to be talking about this, a thesis connecting mission-led firms to servant leadership. A little bit of our background, Jim gave some of it already, and how we picked up on stakeholder management. You know, a little background on servant leadership, which is very abbreviated, and then how we implemented it here in my organization. So here's my thesis. Mission-led organizations are most effective with engaged participants. I think everybody can follow that up. I've got a couple of missions over here. Ours is improving the quality of the environment in which we live, one project at a time. And there's a School of Management right there. So these are mission-led organizations. The mission is incredibly important for the organization, beyond the bottom line. So following that, engagement is more powerful when induced via emotions rather than rationality. I'm a scientist, so I'm into rationality, but what I've learned is to pick up on individuals' emotions and try to pull them in via that. In engagement, emotions are 4 times more powerful than rational. Emotions are incitable through linking the morality, what's right and wrong, to the mission. And then morality in an organization is appropriately directed towards the stakeholders of the organization. What are we trying to do with the people we touch? And then this moral commitment to stakeholders differentiates servant leadership from all other models. This is what I discovered partially through Jim, but that the morality piece of it, what's right and wrong with stakeholders, is really pivotal to servant leadership. And therefore, servant leadership goes hand in hand with effective mission-led organizations. So I hope to kind of prove this out through my brief talk here. This is our background. Jim has already given it to you. We were founded by a professor from Johns Hopkins, a limnologist. And for those of you who don't know, that's a freshwater biologist. So we're very scientific. That's a lot of engineering in this as well. There's some of our background. We're very proud to be employee owned and to be a public benefit corporation. The benefit corporation, I don't have a lot on that here, but both are elective things. And we chose to go through these, what I call obligating structures to further lock in kind of our stakeholder management. And we are heavy, as you can imagine, being in the environmental field, we're heavy into corporate social responsibility. And unbeknownst to us, a couple of years ago, we won this particular provider's, their EcoVadis is a rating system used by the Fortune 5000 to look at their supply chain CSR. And we didn't even know there was such an award, and we won the top one for top CSR player for North America out of 60,000. So it was a complete shock to us. There are a lot of things that we've done over time, at least in the past few years since we became 100% employee owned and a benefit corporation in 2014. And it made us very intentional about what we were trying to do. And a lot of it's behavioral. You know, we've had the benefit of doing well financially, and that gave us latitude to work on all the other things that make an organization great to work in and serving a real social purpose. So we worked on these things, engagement, employee engagement, we're heavy on that. We've redesigned just about everything, our goaling and evaluation. Right now, our goaling and evaluation, everyone in the company has a corporate social responsibility set of goals. A line of sight purposing, relating, and if you look on the right, this is what we call our purpose realization pyramid. Service and financial strength are key to our survival. We wouldn't be who we are unless we serviced everyone we touched. And of course, that goes hand in hand with servant leadership. And if we do those well, we have a right to grow. And if we do all three of those things well, then we can serve a social purpose. And this is modeled, as you probably realize, after Maslow's pyramid. We're heavy into, like many other companies, DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion. And I think these things go hand in hand as well. That is, the DEI work is going to be supportive of everything else we're trying to do behaviorally. Bonus program redesign, we have recreated a lot of our career development, career latticing, et cetera, to incorporate some of these principles. Do a lots in the way of training with our supervisors and our managers. We've incorporated this service quality, which is short-term is RADER, which is behavioral into quality from a marketing side, and of course, branding. And all of these are designed to optimize the value we are providing to our stakeholders. So this is probably redundant, but as you well know, there's the Freeman-Friedman argument about it's only moral to serve shareholders versus that's Friedman versus the stakeholder view, which is serving all of the main stakeholders of the company. And we have adopted this latter one. In my humble opinion, the shareholder view is hitting the easy button. It's harder to do these other things and to balance them, but once you do, boy, it's just a wonderful thing for the organization. So I've lifted these slides from Jim, which shows some results of some empirical work done on linking business resources and performance to various stakeholder outcomes. And there's a big positive relationship, of course. This is the common view of shareholder primacy, is that all your efforts should be dedicated towards the shareholder. However, there's another view of trying to parse out effort and resources to all these other things, the communities, customers, et cetera, the various stakeholders of the firm. Many that are in the shareholder primacy world believe that you're subtracting off the resources and effort that you put into shareholder financial rewards. And therefore, these are mutually exclusive kind of goals. However, the real world experience has proven that these other things actually bolster shareholder value. And so if you can take care of your communities, your employees, et cetera, you can actually boost the rewards to shareholders. So these are additive, not mutually exclusive. This is the way we look at it. We are, of course, in the center, and we are trying to provide value to our employees as employees. We're trying, and since they own the company, we are also trying to provide shareholder value to them. It's wonderful in employee ownership when you can align those two to be employee owned, because that takes out a lot of conflict, and the two are one and the same. We also look at our clients. We've always been a client-centric kind of organization, and we're trying to provide lots of value to them. And we view the environment, it's inanimate, if you will, non-human, but we believe our environment is hugely important. The arrow shapes are on purpose. We're trying to provide more value than we take in. So we're trying to make sure in the employee's case that they have a meaningful workplace and they get more value than actually the paycheck they get. And then further refined, we're looking at EA leaders are the ones that pull this all together. They are the ones that touch base with all of our clients, our employee owners, and natural environment and all the other stakeholders. So they are pivotal in creating this service and the integration of all this. So it's not the easy button, and there needs to be a lot of integration of thought and champions for various stakeholder groups. Okay, so these leaders, I believe, are pivotal in modeling the desired culture that we want all other employees to follow, if you will. They're also pivotal in guiding the vision of the firm, and especially important is creating and instilling this empowerment environment. So the leaders are in the middle of all of this. Here's a blurb, a quote from Robert Greenleaf, who was the originator of the term and the concept of servant leadership. Good leaders must first become good servants. So we think of ourselves ideally as servants to all of our stakeholders. Here's a definition, and I got off of Jim, and you may have discussed this a little bit before, but you can see that in the first bullet there, the uniqueness is this moral commitment to subordinates and stakeholders, and humbly influencing them towards the goals that the organization is trying to create. The stakeholders are multiple. They can be employees and members of an association, to communities, customers, other leaders, the team, and the organization themselves. So there's a lot to balance here, but it's not overwhelming. And these are some outcomes of servant leadership proven out by many empirical studies. Job performance, promotion, going above and beyond. That's in some ways organizational citizenship behavior, satisfaction. A lot of these are on the employees because a lot of research has been done there. Intention to stay, commitment, firm performance. There's been a lot of work here. That original set of drawings with the arrows, that was an empirical study on the firm performance. Return on assets. So there's many good things that come out of this. Here's the servant leadership model. And Jim is quite familiar with this, but there are 7 dimensions. And it's these first 2 that we've had a number of surveys done by Jim and other UB researchers to study our base case and progress throughout time. And it's these 2 that we have the most challenge with. So we're continuing to work on that. But I believe that the DEI work is going to help with them. Acting with empathy, empowering teammates, external citizenship, conceptual skills, behaving ethically. Our top 2 dimensions at EA are behaving ethically and demonstrating conceptual skills, at least as rated by the leaders' subordinates, those judging the quality of the servant leadership of their bosses, so to speak. So what happened with us is that we started off with some engagement work. This is before we became 100% employee-owned and a benefit corporation. And by the way, I don't have a slide on this, but the benefit corporation, I call it corporate social responsibility on steroids. It locks a company or an organization into stakeholder governance by the board. And the board can have latitude to balance stakeholders' material interests with those of the shareholders. So it gives the board and the company more latitude to do what I call the right thing. So we started off with engagement work and realized we had some work to do there. And that and realized that it was this leader in the middle of everything that was key to creating any behavioral change. And this was, gosh, almost 10 years ago now. We established new supervisory training shortly after becoming a 100% ESOP. And that was right before, the training was right after I met Jim. Jim came in and did our initial indoctrination with servant leadership. But we've done lots and lots of surveys. We got another one coming up that's going to tie in inclusive climate with servant leadership to see how that works across the company, both geography-wise, gender, ethnicity, place in their career, et cetera. So we like to understand where things seem to be good and where we've got challenges, much like Gallup engagement surveys that we've got stakeholder orientation surveys alongside our Gallup engagement surveys. And we've got servant leadership indoctrination now part of our onboarding. So everyone has seen Jim either in person or on a video. And that's part of coming into the company. And we talk about this a lot. So repetition, repetition, repetition. And that's how we get to a better place on the behavioral side. Here's some results. The graph on the left, the blue dots are EA and the orange dots are the US workforce population. And the x-axis is time. So this starts in middle of 2015 and ends up in 2021. And you can, and this is a measurement, the index engagement index ratio. It's basically the percentage of individuals within the company or the US, in the case of all US, that are truly engaged, divided by the percentage that are truly disengaged, that is working against the organization. And you want that ratio to be as high as it possibly can be. We were about average with the US workforce back in 2015. When we started working on it, we started to creep up, and over COVID, it just blew us away what happened. And now I give servant leadership the credit because we were very touchy-feely, particularly with our employees, to make sure they were getting through their conflicts, and we communicated well. And I think they appreciated that, and really, compared to the rest of the world, we were in great shape on engagement. The other statistics are our turnover is way below industry average for us in the engineering space. Our revenue growth is much higher than industry. Our safety incidents and metrics have improved greatly relative to the industry average. Our client satisfaction remains very high. And our stock price, this goes back to the shareholder primacy part, has grown 15% a year on average. Of late, it's more like 20 to 25% since we became 100% ESOP and a benefit corporation. I see I'm just about out of time. So here's my prescription, or here's some results from Jim, from some of the surveys and how I interpret things. Let me move my pictures out of the way so I can see this. So servant leadership as viewed by their subordinates creates more orientation towards others, which creates better decision-making, which in our case, the project managers, the leaders who run projects, they handle more volume, which is a great thing. On citizenship, the servant leadership creates more pro-social empowerment, which leads to better charitable donations. And we're very focused on this Water for People as a uniform charity across the board for us. My interpretation is, from a practical standpoint, that servant leadership creates more responsible leaders, and it creates more people who are interested in the greater good. So here's my prescription for change. Define the societal mission of the organization, who the organization stakeholders are, how do you, what value to deliver and how to manage that, what is right and wrong beyond compliance. Talk about these a lot, invoke the emotional moral connection, focus organizational development around this ethic, if you will, and servant leadership is a natural component of this. And to conclude, mission-led organizations require engaged participants. An engaging culture must be intentionally developed. And there's a lot of intentionality behind what we're doing. In fact, it's probably half my job now. Leaders are the pivot point with all these stakeholders, especially the employees, and servant leadership is an ideal framework to instill this morally based commitment to stakeholders and lead to effective mission organizations. So that's it. I tried to keep it short. Jim, I'm 1 minute over.
That's actually a lot better than I was expecting from some of the talks we've both done, and I've gone over most of the time usually myself as well. Thanks so much, Ian. It's, organizational change is such a hard thing, so it's always fascinating to me to hear from people who've done it on such a grand scale. We've got a few questions that have come in the chat. Larry asked, does EA ever compare itself to just its industry peers when it comes to engagement? Do you have any data on that?
Yes, in fact, that's one of the reasons why we stick with Gallup is that they allow industry benchmarks, and of late, they didn't do this a few years ago, but they have all sorts of benchmarking databases to compare to, and we can compare to the broad engineering design industry, and we are, I don't know, probably the 60th percentile. So we've got room to improve. But we're doing great. Good question.
I'm going to combine two of the questions that I got. One person actually private chatted me a question, said they weren't sure they wanted their name attached to it, but they basically said that this isn't our culture, but I would like it to be. How do I overcome some of the barriers I face to this? And we also got a question from Anthony who asked, what resistance or barriers did you face in implementation? So could you speak to both of those?
Yeah, those are loaded questions in the sense that it's taken years. So I'm in the position of being the CEO. So I've got a lot of power to make all this, but we're very collaborative and consensus oriented orientation. The first resistance is on that one with the picture with the multiple arrows, that people's natural inclination is this stuff costs money. Therefore, you're taking away from the bottom line. How can we overcome that? And it takes a lot of work on the instrumental side to show that even though it's still theoretical, that there's a high likelihood that the effectiveness and efficiency of the organization will grow. I certainly had to do this at the board level and with numerous individuals who hold sway over the organization. So that's the first major challenge. Once you get a whole bunch of people in the leadership mode who are past that and see the inherent, if we can afford this, this is great stuff for everybody, then you get this passionate group. So it takes a while to get people on board, but once you do, then it starts snowballing, if you will. Jim, did I answer that completely?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. And I think that's really the challenge, is changing people's mindset, because we've all been in this paradigm for most of our careers that, businesses only exist to make money.
Right.
And you had some great research or results in there that kind of question that. Larry asked a follow-up question I want to get to. Have you ever lost very talented owner employees earlier than planned who took early retirement because the company was performing so well? And how would that impact the engagement of others?
Well, no, we haven't had any that have just flat out retired. We do have people's ESOP balances getting up there. There are several with hundreds of thousands, and we actually model this out. We try to model out how much of value they can retire with to be equivalent to sustaining their current salary structure. And our ESOP value is doubled in size relative to the marketplace, i.e. relative to their 401k savings. We did lose one individual who was more of we had we had to buy out all of the management who were separate shareholders. And one individual is more of the hunter-killer type. And we have a very one for all for one. And we lost that person because they just didn't like the lack of a partnership model. But that's the only person we've ever lost to that. So no to your question about have we lost anyone to early retirement? Not to my knowledge. People like to stick around here. And we've got lots of people who are in their 70s who are still with us. So that's the case.
That sounds like a powerful testament to the stickiness of the culture. One last one, and this one comes from Rick. Excellent presentation. Based on your experience and observation, can you give us some other organizations of any type who have gotten this right? I mean, so other organizations we could look to as, okay, this is a model company that's doing this right. Any come to mind?
The first one that comes to mind is Southwest Airlines, and I'm a preferred flyer with Southwest. And if you've ever flown Southwest, they've got it riddled through their culture to the attendants who greet you and tell jokes. And they do incredibly well financially, relatively speaking, to their competition. So that's one of the big ones. There are one or two others in our industry who claim it, but when I've gone to talk to their CEOs, they don't really. They just throw the name out. So they haven't taken it to heart to drill it in to the culture of the organization. And none others are coming to mind. Jim, I'm sure you got them at the end of your tongue. But can you think of any other?
I agree. It's a challenging question because there's a lot of businesses that talk the talk, but they're not as good as at walking the walk.
Yeah. It can be done, though. It can be done.
So thank you again, Ian McFarland, a gentleman and a scholar. He can be reached at EA Enterprise if you've got questions about this stuff. He eats, lives, and breathes this stuff. And what a great example, a powerful example. We talk about how hard organizational change is, but here's a company that did it at the highest possible level and has thrived throughout it by embracing some counterintuitive logic. So thanks again very much for your time with us, Ian.
You're very welcome.
Coming up on the next exciting installment of Chloe's 52 Weeks of Leadership, we've got Dr. Jesse Miller with something that I'm going to call interestingly different. Because it's not the kind of thing we normally talk about. Dr. Miller is a faculty member here in our Department of Organizations and Human Resources, but he's not so much an organizational psychologist as he is a communications scholar. In fact, he has written a lot of articles that you'd like, Ian, on the healing power of what he calls bibliotherapy. And he's going to be taking a very unique perspective on the importance of written communication in a leader's role and how you can really maximize your impact. So we hope to see you back here, same place, same time for that, 12 next Monday. Till then, good luck exercising off those Thanksgiving pounds. Have a great week.
Thank you.